Next is the 2010s, which 2K labeled the LeBron era, and this one is also spicy. Most people consider LeBron as the greatest player since the turn of the millennium. But when you narrow it down to one specific decade, I can see how Steph Curry fans were triggered by the dismissal. In the decade of the 2010s, LeBron won 3 NBA championships, and Steph Curry also won 3. LeBron made it all the way to the NBA Finals 8 times, and Steph made it to the Finals 5 times. When the two met up in the playoffs, LeBron's team eliminated Steph only once, while Curry's team eliminated LeBron.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, I could feel why people would say that it's a LeBron and Steph era. I'm not mad at that. Y'all see the title, man. Let's get to it.
So NBA 2K just brought 5 different eras to their game, and nearly every era was named specifically after certain players. As in the case of many things, this got social media in a frenzy, as everyone began debating who the eras actually belonged to. According to 2K, there is the Magic and Bird era, the Jordan era, the Kobe era, the LeBron era, and the modern era. Well, considering the fact that I love basketball history era and Bird era, they actually belong to. According to 2K, there is the Magic and Bird era, the Jordan era, the Kobe era, the LeBron era, and the modern era. Well, considering the fact that I love basketball history and have a YouTube channel specifically dedicated to it, I figured I might as well give my perspective on them. Not only will I be saying whether or not I agree with 2K's choices, but I will also be giving titles to the earlier eras that 2K does not address. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first era that needs to be given a title was when the NBA was in its infancy, which is essentially the 1950s. For this one, there's basically no argument for anyone else. Without a shadow of a doubt, this was the George Mikan era. During this stretch of time, Mikan led his Lakers to win 4.
Y'all know I always say this. You said, "What's that who been here?" I'm saying, nah, I remember doing the Mikan drill back in the day. I'm saying, back in my hooping days, doing the and then you do different variations of it too, you know? Do the Then you saying, what else you could do? You do mad different. I used to do so many different variations of the Mikan drill, bro.
Championships in a span of 5 years as the clear best player on his team. In that time, he also won several scoring titles and rebounding titles, as there was no question who the best player was in the game during that era. Next up is the 1960s.
You probably could put the ball off that glass real well too, you heard? That's probably wild. It's called Mikan drill, bro. I know you had to be elite at them hook shots, layups, anything in like that inside area. I know he was elite. I already know, man. I gotta go check it out. But
you guys know how much I love and respect Wilt Chamberlain on my channel. But let's be real, there's absolutely no argument for anyone other than Russell during this era, as I'm labeling the 1960s the Bill Russell era. In that decade, Russell led his team to win 9 out of a possible 10 championships, and the only other team who won a title was the 76ers, who were led by Chamberlain. You could argue that Russell and Chamberlain should have shared that era, just like Magic and Bird for the 80s, but the 9 championships to only 1 is just too big of a gap for me to make it make sense. I don't care if Chamberlain had averaged 70 points per game over that decade. It doesn't change the fact that the Celtics were the model of excellence in the 1960s, and it was Russell who won more chips than any other player in NBA history. Next, we're looking at the 1970s.
He won like 8 in a row, right? 8 in a row is crazy.
And this is a bit of a tricky one. From an individual perspective, there's no question that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the most talented and statistically dominant player over the course of that decade. But unfortunately, he only got 1 championship in that decade. And are we really about to name an entire era after a player who only reached the mountaintop once? In the 70s, the Celtics won more championships than anyone else, but that was just a grand total of 2, and the stardom of those teams was pretty evenly split between Dave Cowens and John Havlicek. If we're being honest, this era is famous for the fact that it didn't contain a single dynasty team, as there were many different winners over the course of the decade. For this reason, I would not title this era after a single player, but instead, I would call it the parody era. because it's the ultimate example of a balanced level of competition within the league.
And I just added a video to my watch later about why I think the title is why teams couldn't win a back-to-back championship in the 70s. I'm gonna check that out definitely now.
Next is the 1980s, and this won't take me very long because of course 2K got this one right, as this was definitely the Magic and Bird era. Between these two legendary superstars, they won 8 out of a possible 10 championships, and between the two of them, they represented every single NBA Finals series that decade. I imagine some diehard Pistons fan might try to shoehorn Isaiah Thomas into the conversation, but he technically only won a single championship that decade, as the second one was the beginning of the 1990s. And as much as I respect Thomas's talent, he never won a single MVP award, unlike Magic and Bird, who won several. Without question, this is correctly named the Magic and Bird era. Now, the 1990s. Just like the decade before, this is an easy choice. This is appropriately named the Michael Jordan era. The Bulls won 6 out of a possible 10.
I feel like only one that he might not agree with is the LeBron era one. You know what I'm saying? I think he might just say we can split that into LeBron. Well, I don't know. We're gonna see. I see him splitting that into LeBron / Curry. LeBron / someone else.
Championships that decade, and Jordan was the Finals MVP in every one of those cases. Along with that, MJ was pretty much universally recognized as the best player during that era, and anyone who disagreed just likely wanted to be different. Some might try to say that Hakeem should share the title of this era with MJ, but I think that's a little generous to the dream, considering how MJ has.
Yeah, MJ really, you know what I'm saying? I feel Hakeem was definitely that. I didn't check out a little bit, but in terms of just dominance over the complete era, that 10 years, Mike got that.
3 times the amount of rings that Elijah One has, and
that's
4
the
times
same thing
the
I feel like
amount
with
of MVPs. I could unnecessarily go over his long list of accolades in that decade, but you guys get it. He was Michael Jordan, and that was his era. Now for the 2000s, and this is where things get really interesting. 2K decided to give the title exclusively to Kobe Bryant, and obviously, by them doing that, the biggest omission is the San Antonio Spurs legend, Tim Duncan. Imagine getting 5 championship rings as the leader of your team and not getting an era. Now, if you force me to pick one or the other, I do think there is a slightly better argument for Kobe Bryant than for Tim Duncan.
Yeah, that's why I like. You feel me? That's how I feel like it is with Bron as well. Like, damn, Tim won 5 in this decade, the 2000s decade, as the leader of his team. I thought Tim won one of those when he was like a sort of a rookie or a sophomore. Maybe I'm wrong with that. I don't know. Wasn't David Robinson and them on the team still? Or am I bugging?
The funny thing is that Duncan has consistency working in his favor, but that advantage quickly becomes a disadvantage when you limit the comparison to one specific era. Let's look at the 2000s. During this era, Kobe's Lakers won 4 championship rings, while Tim Duncan's Spurs won 3. The Lakers made it to the NBA Finals a total of
okay, so I don't think I'm bugging.
6 times, while the Spurs only made it 3 times. And when they met each other in the playoffs, Kobe's team eliminated the Spurs 4 times, and Duncan's team eliminated the Lakers only once. Unless you value regular season wins over actual championships, then there's no question that Kobe's team won significantly more during this era. Now, inevitably, many of my friends who are Spurs fans will then try to redirect Kobe's success exclusively towards Shaq, as if Kobe didn't earn any of that success. These are the numbers Kobe averaged in the playoffs against the Spurs while he was teammates with Shaq, and these are the numbers that Shaq put up in that same stretch against San Antonio. Many people have forgotten or just never realized that Kobe was arguably the best player on the court whenever they squared off with San Antonio. And heck, Even in the one instance where Shaq wasn't involved, Kobe's Lakers still defeated the Spurs while he put up these strong numbers. So if I'm being forced to pick exclusively either Duncan or Kobe, then I'm going with Kobe. But my question is, why should I have to pick one or the other? Magic and Bird share the 1980s podium. Yet when you look at the two head-to-head, it's clear that Magic won way more in that era than Bird did.
Yeah. But it's like the dominance Bird had as well. I feel like I feel like that's more so due to, I don't know, bro, because I don't know, bro. I was going to say it's due to Tim Duncan playing more so fundamental, you know, and not really too exciting. But Curry plays exciting, you know what I'm saying? And he's not on there with LeBron. So I can't really use that. I don't know, bro.
It's clear that Magic won way more in that era than Bird did.
Like, you feel me, Larry? It was like a Larry and Magic thing when they saved the NBA, right? Am I wrong? I don't think I'm wrong with that. I think I'm correct. You know, pretty sure Larry played a big part in saving the NBA as well. You know, and that's really why him and Magic did that. You know what I'm saying, together with the Celtics dynasty and the Lakers dynasty. They did that, you know?
Based on the precedent set by 2K, it should be the Kobe and Duncan era. It makes zero sense that Magic should have to share the era with Bird when Kobe doesn't have to share the era with Duncan. If the decision was ultimately up to me, I would disagree.
Bro, I hear a lot about Larry Bird associated with Magic. I don't hear Tim Duncan associated with Kobe Bryant too much. And that might be to people's faults, you know, not underrating Tim Duncan a little bit, but yeah, bro, I don't know, bro. I don't know.
With 2K, and would have made it the Kobe and Duncan era, regardless of the fact that Kobe may have had the slightly better case individually. Next is the 2010s, which 2K labeled the LeBron era, and this one is also spicy. Most people consider LeBron as the greatest player since the turn of the millennium. But when you narrow it down to one specific decade, I can see how Steph Curry fans were triggered by the dismissal. In the decade of the 2010s, LeBron won 3 NBA championships, and Steph Curry also won 3. LeBron made it all the way to the NBA Finals 8 times, and Steph made it to the Finals 5 times. When the two met up in the playoffs, LeBron's team eliminated Steph only once, while Curry's team eliminated LeBron.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, I could feel why people would say that it's a LeBron and Steph era. I'm not mad at that. Just due to the facts how the finals played out all those times, you know. Curry and them was winning. It was winning. It was, you know what I'm saying, do their thing, you know. So I'm not mad at that at all. You know what I'm saying?
A total of 3 times. Yes, I agree that LeBron was the best player over the course of that decade. But consider what Steph did in that window. He won back-to-back MVPs, becoming the first unanimous MVP in NBA history. He led his team to the best single-season record of all time, and led his team to the best single postseason record of all time as well. He broke numerous records, he had the greatest 50-40-90 season of all time, all while winning an equal amount of championships to LeBron. Not only does he deserve the respect, but he was legitimately a rival to LeBron James during that era. So again, if you're going to have both Magic and Bird, then how are you just going to pick LeBron in this instance? 2K really screwed this one up, and in case you can't tell, I completely disagree with them, as I would have titled it as the LeBron and Steph era. The last era on the list is simply described by 2K as the modern era, and honestly, I think that's the correct call. A lot of players in the modern game are still early in their careers, and if 2K hypothetically called this, say, the Nikola Jokic era, and then Giannis went on to win 2 or 3 more championship rings, then that would age incredibly poorly. As of now, keep a player's name off of it, and let the players write the history for themselves. Yes. So what do you guys think?
Way to put that into words, my boy. That was a great way to put that into words, Johnny. Word. But if y'all enjoyed this, y'all know what to do. Let me know how y'all feel in the comments. You know, I was torn a lot in this video, but except for the LeBron Steph one, I could definitely understand. You know, because that 2010s era, that was a lot of LeBron and Steph. Like without Steph, LeBron's greatness is real questionable because he was going to get up against such a great player in Steph and that Warriors team. You know what I'm saying? It boosted LeBron's greatness when he won, you know? Well, I'm talking about the Cleveland wins, you know what I'm saying? Y'all know what I'm talking about. But I'm gonna get a body, man. Click on the last joint, share it with your peoples. Turn on post notifications, subscribe. I'm out of here, man.